Hi everybody, today we're going to do some texture doodles. You're going to need a white gel pen and a black piece of paper. These textures are normally associated with things called Zentangles. I'm just going to be putting a bunch of them out there and you can use them however you like. You just need a ruler and a gel pen. So I'm going to make a rectangle. And inside that rectangle, I'm going to make smaller squares. Oh, man, how you make a crooked line with a ruler? That's terrible. So these kinds of drawings are usually used, like I said, in Zentangles, but I like to use them in just random doodles. And then also be careful with gel pens because they can be kind of gloppy and, leave a big smudged mess. So feel free to wipe off the tip of the gel pen from time to time so that it doesn't smudge everywhere. This kind of looks like a calendar. The calendar had 6 days instead of 7. And each one of these squares, I'm going to put a different texture so that you guys can use them as you like or practice them. So this one particular square is going to be the only one I really use a ruler for. And it's just to draw these straight lines. When you're using a ruler like this, you always want to start from the opposite corner that you're going to finish from, because if you put the ruler over a line that you just made, it's going to take that white gel pen and smudge it. You can already see some gloppy little lines there. But that's just kind of how it works. Now, if you put those lines closer together, it's going to fill in the space more, but that's good enough. This is another pattern that's called basket weave. You draw 3 vertical lines and then 3 horizontal lines. And then when you go to the next row, you do the opposite, as if you're weaving the lines back and forth, even though you're just kind of drawing them one on top of the other, all the way up to your space is filled up. And in this case, my space are these squares, so until my little square is filled up. The next texture that we're going to use is a variant of the basket weave, and it is a brick. So brick texture. This one is really simple. You clearly don't need a ruler for this, even though my lines are a little bit crooked, but brick texture is one of those standard straight line little textures. And you can, put some more values in there, but that'll work. This one is kind of like the first box, but instead of making only diagonals that are parallel, we're going to do them coming from a center point. So this becomes like the rays of a sun or like a starburst. And you just kind of start from the same point and then you keep going until the entire square is filled. And you can start from any angle, but I started at the bottom left. And once again, be careful of those smudgy points. This one is, I'm going to break this one into 2 separate portions. So the first portion is going to be polka dots. And I like to do alternating polka dots. So, whereas a line of them and then the next row happens in the middle. So I think it looks more even. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the polka dots. You do not have to do this, but this is a separate visual concept that you can use. You can leave the polka dots plain, or in this case I'm creating a chain link. You don't have to completely unite all the dots. You can leave some of them separate, and that looks kind of cool. All right, for the next one, this is just little dashes. That's it. Nothing fancy. Anybody can do this, and you can do this anywhere. You can make the dashes really close together, really far, really long, really short. You can go from any angle. You can even change the angle part of the way. But in this one, I wanted to make it look a little bit like rain. Looks okay. So, you can even do it diagonally. That's pretty cool too. All right, next texture. This one is, these are called scallops. Little humps, little hills. and I'm just doing them one on top of each other where the next line goes through the middle of the previous line. And you can leave your scallops just like this. You don't have to do anything to them. But what I like to do is I like to make them a little bit more, make them stand out a little bit more. So I shade the inside of them like this. So they kind of look like fish eggs or like frog eggs. That's kind of gross sounding, but I like the way they look. I think it looks cool. Some people like to do this with, instead of like coloring in like this, they'll use lines instead to replace the shading in. But with that white gel pen, the shading, I think it looks really cool and really, dynamic. And it helps to fill in the space, I think really, in a really kind of cool way. It can take a little while to finish it though, to do it, nicely. Okay. Texture number, what is this? 8? Yes. So this is a bunch of lines, and we are going to be doing, you guess it, a checkerboard. And your checkerboard, you can color in the squares, but in this, I'm going to do lines, kind of like what I did for the herringbone. You don't have to use lines. Like I said, you can color them in, and you don't have to use the lines all in the same direction, as long as you fill in every other shape so that it looks like a checkerboard. Dark touches light, light touches dark. Very good. Now we're going on to number 9. This one I call oyster shells, and really all you're doing is doing these loops back and forth starting from a central place and filling up all the negative space. So filling up everything I can. And you can make those loops farther apart or closer together. You can make them long or short or fat, but just as long as the entire space is filled up with these loops. This is probably one of my favorite textures to use. To me, it looks like oyster shells. All right, number 10. This one is super easy. It's just a spiral. And you just kind of can really start from any point, and as long as you make it look like it keeps going all around, that's good. Looks great. This next one is kind of a version of that. And, well, not really a version, is that you're doing circles. So do a bunch of circles, 2, 3, 4 maybe, and do loops around them. Don't fill in the space completely, and don't have them overlap each other at all. Now we're going to do this contouring, where we trace around the circles as if they're kind of like rock formations or like droplets in a puddle. I think they look really cool. And the less you do in a space, the better. So those two are kind of related. All right, what is this now? 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. This one, I call them tubes, even though they're not really tubes. They're just kind of squiggly little lines. But this, you have to focus on a little bit because you're going to go behind. So whatever lines you put down, all the next lines are going to go behind those. Like a bunch of like squiggly tubes or snakes, or something about it reminds me of chutes and ladders. I'm not sure. So we have a bunch of little curved lined textures that we can use. All right. Number 10. Okay. Here we go. This one is just kind of like the one above it. It's just a bunch of humps or hills coming in, regular intervals. Almost like frequency waves. And that's it. You don't have to do anything else. But I like to put little dots, kind of like I like to color in those other spaces. So just the little dots makes it a little bit more interesting to look at. All right, here we go. This one is, for whatever reason, it reminds me of X-Men. You just draw essentially 2 overlapping lines. In this case, I did an X. And then in all the negative spaces, you just do lines. Now you can do them vertically or you can do them horizontally, but they all have to be going the same direction and they have to be closer together than the X, so that the X is really, really, really obvious. I think it looks cool. And the closer together the lines are, the more that X is apparent. All right, here we go. Oh, we're kind of wrapping this down a little bit. All right, this one is kind of like the tube ones, and it's kind of like the X one, in that you're gonna go over and under all of your lines. But like the tube one, you're gonna keep the same kind of lines going. And in this case, I did 3 lines per underneath piece, or 2 lines per underneath piece. And you just change the direction. It doesn't matter which way you're going, back and forth, until you feel like the space is filled up enough. You don't want to fill up all the negative space, because that way it'll make it hard to see which direction the lines are actually going in. All right, here we are. Oh, I got 3 left. This one is just zigzags. And I'm going to show you 2 ways to do zigzags on this one little square. So this one is just kind of the ongoing zigzag up and down, like a Charlie Brown sweater. And then we're going to do something else. We're going to take lines from those points to the top, and then we're going to do something called, I guess, what is that, a herringbone pattern? Where you make these V's inside of those spaces with the lines going through every other one. I think it looks really neat. There was a lot of, this was really big a few years ago. Everything was that pattern. Chevron, that's what the word I'm looking for is, chevron pattern. All right. This one is probably one of my ultimate favorites, and it's plaid. Plaid is really easy to do. You just do a bunch of lines, some of them close together, some of them far apart. And then you do the opposite. You do the same thing going the other way. It's really simple. And whatever you do to the horizontal, you have to do it to the diagonal. Pretty straightforward, and it makes a really great looking texture in any kind of space that you use. And here we are at the last one. Okay. What is this, 18? And this one is just little stars. Stars and a polka dot pattern, and I'm just going to put some little dots in between. And then that is it for our textures. Feel free to use them for anything you need, or just to doodle. They're pretty fun.